Hi, welcome to episode 8 of At Home with Cathy, and today we are going to start on the master bedroom. We have this room all painted, trim's all done, closet doors, don't look at those yet, but we're going to talk a little bit about the theme for this room. We've chosen the French theme, and we're following Annie's book, Color Recipes for Painted Furniture. Everything is in here that we're going to do today, but as usual, we're going to mix the colors up just a little bit. So you know that everything we do when we start a room is inspired by something. This room was inspired by this beautiful old rug. This belonged to my great-grandmother. It's been in storage for a long time. It probably needs a good cleaning. I'm sure it has years of stories it could tell. But we've taken the colors from this rug as inspiration, following the recipes in the book, and we are going to paint bedroom furniture in here. One of the things we're going to paint is this beautiful pineapple bed, likely a reproduction, but it has a lot of interesting little details. So these are going to be fun to work with and come up with an effect. We're going to do something called a wax resistant effect, and we'll do that step by step as we go along. We have end tables that we're going to use as our side tables. These are going to be painted as well, and they're going to have a wash on them with a detail in burgundy. The other piece that's on the program is this old dressing table, mahogany dressing table. We're going to paint that in a combination of reds and blues to kind of pick out the colors that we're going to have here in the bed and here in the rug. And we are joined today with a guest, so I'm going to get started on that. So joining me today as we start work on our French bedroom is Janet Pearl from Old Flame Furnishings. Janet has been painting furniture for a lot of years. We were talking about earlier about 6 years. Yeah, 6. And she is going to help me do this wax resistant finish on this bed. So we're going to get started by painting the entire bed in Napoleonic Blue. And it is a two-person job. There's lots of little nooks and crannies on these pineapple beds. So let's pick up a brush and get started.
Great.
So Janet has the first coat of Napoleonic Blue, or the first coat I should say, which is Napoleonic Blue, started on here. You want to get into all the little nooks and crannies, and that's one of the reasons we've chosen this finish for the bed. You can see as she's painting, there are lots of little grooves here. And we want that blue to be right down inside the grooves, because as we continue to work with this finish, that's the color that we're going to be left with inside there as we build more layers. Now we're going to use a candle. This is the distressed finish. It's called wax resisting. You're just taking, I'm using old broken candles. I chose lighter colors, and all I'm doing is I'm rubbing the candle over the dry paint. Now we did use a hairdryer to speed it up a little bit so that this video doesn't take 8 hours to produce. So you can see I've left wax. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to wipe off the loose wax just with a dry cloth. But where we paint, it's actually a little bit shiny from the wax. I'm not sure if you can see it. You can feel it. It's got a smoothness to it. Have you done this finish before?
No, I haven't.
No. Me either. What's going to happen is when we put our next coat of paint on, it's not going to stick as well. It's going to stick to the wax, but not to the paint underneath it. So then when that coat dries, we lightly sand it and it comes off.
So that's the term resist.
That's the term resist. The wax is resisting the paint, adhering to the next one.
In certain spots.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And it's not like we've taken the candle and rubbed it all over everywhere.
Right.
I've mostly just concentrated on the edges a little bit. And we don't want to get too much paint now into the crevices of the pineapple, which we would continue all the way down here. It's just this paint is still a bit wet. But we might take the candle and just go around here a little bit, just around on the edge, because maybe we don't want the paint to stick quite here. What we're looking for is a sort of dark to light effect as we work with this finish. The recipe Annie uses in her book is just a little bit different. It's still blues.
So could you achieve this with wax? I mean, Annie Sloan's wax as opposed to the candle?
You could, except this is hard.
Okay.
So this is what, it's easier to rub it on where you want it specifically. Think of it like a pencil.
Right.
I can push it where I want it to go. Whereas if I were waxing with the brush is wide. I'm not going to be able to control where it goes.
Right.
There, she does do finishes where she works with the wax being soft. And we're going to try that in another room. But this finish is, she's working with the hard wax of a candle. So the next color we're going to do is a mixture of the Napoleonic Blue and Opus Blue, which is the next color. And I've done a 50-50 mix. So we'll switch and start that one. So we have our second coat of paint on, and this is a mix, half mix of Opus and the Napoleonic. And you can see Janet painted it very lightly, almost just over the top of the original paint so that our Napoleonic shows. We want that detail to show because we want this pineapple to really pop out and be a pineapple. So I've got coarse sandpaper and I'm just lightly going to sand back, and I can almost just feel the wax underneath. Just going to take it back, and it doesn't matter if I go back a little bit to the wood. I may be taking back a little bit too much there just because it's still soft paint. But I'm just pulling off the wax. Now normally what would happen is we would paint this and let it sit for a little bit.
Right,
so.
yeah.
Janet, when you paint, what sort of things are you painting now?
Well, I'm doing a lot more dressers and buffets right now, just because I happen to find some really good ones.
And you look for something that has
That's structurally sound, has some good detail. Tom and I are a big fan of keeping pieces, original, so in terms of their hardware, so that's always a good thing if we can find something with all the original hardware intact.
Well, I think Tom has quite a collection of things.
Yes, yeah. He's very creative.
Well, you paint a lot of things that you've found that are structurally sound, and Tom likes to make things.
Yeah, he's the artist. He can create things and find uses for old lathe legs, and it's just amazing.
Well, even the hardware that he puts on some of these doors that I've seen, it's amazing.
Yeah. He spends a lot of time, so
it is an art.
Yeah.
So now our third color. We've done Napoleonic Blue, we've done the Opus Blue and Napoleonic Blue mix. Our third color is a mixture of Louis Blue and Opus Blue. So you can see it blooms a little bit. The Louis Blue has white in it, and that's something that we'll keep stirring as we're going around. All of this paint is heavily pigmented. And if you're working on a piece such as this, if Janet and I were going all the way around, by the time we got to the other end of the bed, some of the pigments will have settled. So it is a paint you need to keep stirring, particularly the darker colors. So Janet's going to do a wash, again very gently, over this. And let's experiment. Oops, excuse me. Let's experiment a little bit. On this side, let's do the wax resist here to see what our finish is. One thing I like about this paint is that if we don't like what we got, we can always go back.
Yeah, if it's too solid.
It's too, it won't look right.
Which it might be here,
right.
I think.
And it might be, but we'll just see.
My brush is fairly loaded, so it could be.
So we'll dry that, maybe come around this side and paint where I did the wax.
Okay.
And then we'll dry it and see what it looks like.
So that's probably better just to do a little bit lighter.
So if you found your brush was too wet, you could always damp it off a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that might be the case.
And give yourself, so you don't have drips.
Yeah.
We have our third color on here, and the third color was a blend of the Louis Blue and the Opus Blue. So what we're doing is we're lightening. We started with the dark and we're slowly working our way through. And by blending the colors, we're just giving it a softer sort of range of color. And it's interesting. I don't know if you can get that, Sean, but on this side, I can scrape off more easily where the wax was. And on this side, I'm scraping down more to the original finish. So that's what the wax resist does. That's our experiment.
So it creates a good layer between.
It does, and the resist means I'm not going to by mistake take off more paint than I wanted to. Because this is a very coarse sandpaper. It's a 100. And I want that because I do want to see the lines.
Yeah, I like this.
That's a nice right there. Do you want to try your hand at waxing?
So on a big surface like this, you would just run the candle over it, or would you pick places where you wanted it?
I think it would depend on what look you wanted.
But for
In
this
Annie's
look-
book, the recipe we're following, she does run it over a lot of the detail edges, and then she does run it over her flat surface. So we would continue painting all across here, and then we would do it, but the candle itself isn't going to adhere evenly.
Right.
So
hit and miss.
Hit and miss a bit.
Right.
We're going to have a little bit of the patchy look.
Yeah. Oh, you want it up here?
Yeah, we'll try that, and then we'll do our last layer. It's real. The candle's really only going to go, the wax, where there's an edge.
Yeah.
In other words, don't write any bad words on it, and then they might show up later. And you can see where your wax is.
Yeah.
So this would be quite a time-consuming job.
Very, very.
Yeah, but the effect would be, I think, quite stunning when you're all done. And of course, the chalk paint would dry fairly quickly. I usually have a fan on when I'm going. By the time I painted my Napoleonic Blue all the way around the footboard and the headboard, it would be dry where I started.
Right.
And ready to do the second coat. So then just wipe off the...
So then you're
loose
ready.
wax.
You're going to do this one, right, Kathy?
Sure, yeah. So this is our last coat. We've used Lily Blue mixed with Old Ochre. These are all roughly a 50-50 wash.
That's a gorgeous color.
Isn't that pretty?
Yeah.
It's so soft.
Yeah.
Well, it really seemed like it would be soft against the pink in this room too.
Yeah.
And Old Ochre is just a lovely color. Little hints of brown in it, I guess. So now if I've got too much, I'll just take it back off with the sandpaper. And then for this finish, it'll be a clear wax. Oh, I put too much on there. Because I think if we did a dark wax, we would lose all of our layering technique.
Right, and it would muddy it down.
It would muddy it, yes.
Yeah.
So the clear wax would be the best.
Right.
So we'll dry this and we'll sand it back and we'll see what we get. So Janet is sanding the last coat, just did that gentle little sanding.
Yeah.
You can see how it doesn't take very much. Of course, the paint's soft too.
Yeah.
I should tell the story of how I got this bed. 'Cause Tom was at an auction
Yes.
and he had purchased a dresser and he went to pick up the dresser and the guy said, well, what about the bed? And Tom said, what bed? And he didn't know, but he'd bought a bed and a dresser. So the next thing I knew, there was a phone call. Kathy, do you need a bed? And the answer was yes, because we had just moved to this house about a week earlier. So
I think we said trade you some paint for a bed.
so paint got traded for a bed.
So Kathy,
There.
just how much more do you want off?
I think it would just be a tiny little bit.
Because I'm
And-
getting some wood through.
Exactly, but that'll be all right, because that'll look like a burgundy
Yeah, okay.
when we're
great.
done.
That's right, it will.
Yeah. And I think the idea is just to show that, and I'm kind of going in the direction of the wood, as though
Right.
it was wood grain.
Yes.
Following the wood grain, just to keep it.
I like that.
I like that. I
really
agree.
do, yeah.
So then here it would be the same. It would just be a gentle, get rid of the edges of the paint.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe the coarse, I might move to a finer as well, just to get a little less of a line.
Yeah. I find the sanding sponges are a little easier to control, especially in these edges here, because you can put it on a side
And really get in
Right,
there.
yeah, yeah.
But I think that effect, and now you have to imagine that it's going to be over the whole bed, which it will be when you come back. And I think that's going to be a beautiful finish, and it has sort of a polished finish. You can feel the wax just a little bit.
Yeah, beautiful.
So that's going to be gorgeous, and I think it will show up nicely against the walls, which was what we were looking for. So that's our first attempt at a wax resist finish, and you'll see the finished product when we come back and look at this bedroom as it gets completed. So that was the end of episode 8. I hope you join us for episode 9 when we go back to the coastal room to see what beautiful things have happened there. And thank you, Janet, for joining me today.
Thank
It
you,
was a lot
Cathy,
of
for
fun.
inviting me. It was
Janet
fun.
from Old Flame Furnishings. Check her out on Facebook. You're going to fall in love with the furniture.
Thanks, Cathy.